I'm afraid if I was going to answer questions, I might have to not give a speech at this point, so I hope you'll forgive me if I do have to disappear straight away. It genuinely is something I would prefer to stay at than go and speak to the BBC about the Edinburgh Tram project, but I have to do both. Like Pauline, I was going to begin with a couple of reflections about the early days of Holyrood. My first experience of the place was not as an MSP. I was elected for the second session, and in the first session I was active on the campaign to repeal Section 28. And in the middle of that campaign I found myself sitting on the front bench of the chamber, the old temporary chamber, the Church of Scotland Assembly building, giving evidence to one of the committees. I got to take my youth group that I was representing. I was a youth worker at the time. I got to take them along to the gallery to watch the final decisions being made. Prior to that, they'd been lobbying their MSPs directly. They'd had visits from their MSPs. I found it an accessible Parliament. I found it a Parliament whose doors were open to whoever wanted to participate. And while it doesn't always get that right, I think it's a damn sight better than what we had before. And so I think it's important to remember the value of what has been achieved. And although it's not, as Pauline said, as accountable as it needs to be sometimes, maybe more often now than its early days it fails to do that, it is a base to work from which is dramatically more valuable than what we had before. In those early days, the Greens, we kind of sat down with the SNP and the Scottish Socialists and others who supported independence and tried to kind of, like, how can we work together? And it was a wee bit of a sticky area, actually. You might have thought it would have been an easy thing to do for the parties that supported independence to sit down together and talk about how they might collaborate on that issue, how they might work together. But very early on it was pretty clear that it was an uncomfortable discussion for both sides. But for us, you know, I think sometimes it was hard to know whether the SNP really understood what we thought about independence, and if we supported it, why we weren't just nationalists. And on the other side of the table, you know, I think some of the SNP kind of felt a bit challenged by this. Here were some other political parties who supported independence, but somewhere down the list of priorities, whereas for the SNP it was their reason for existing. And so it was a little bit of a difficult dynamic, a little bit of a difficult discussion, and we kept on having to get over this issue that Greens don't support independence as an end in itself. We don't think on its own it's any great achievement. It's about what it allows you to do, and whether it allows Scotland to more fully express the distinctive politics that we think Scotland has from the rest of the UK. And for the SNP, you know, there are people from absolutely left to right of the political spectrum. There are people who would have been comfortable in the Scottish Socialist Party in the SNP, and there are people who would be comfortable in the Scottish Conservative Party in the SNP. In that sense, it's the only single-issue political party going at the moment. It's united by this single idea that independence has to be the solution to everything. And so we spent some time trying to get around this issue of why it is Greens support independence. Every time it comes up at our party conference, we begin by talking about independence, and maybe one or two people express reservations, but it's never an issue of hostility. But by the time this conversation is 10 minutes old, people are talking about interdependence. People are talking about how economic interests, how environmental interests, social interests lead you towards a worldview, lead you towards issues about how countries interrelate, rather than simply how much power do we need to have here. But we do find it very, very hard to come up with a long list of powers or decision-making facilities that should be held at UK level. Clearly there are some, like human rights and environmental protection, which have been exercised well at European level. And there are others, particularly around how you run an economy, and issues around the taxation system, for example, and currency control, which do need to be controlled domestically, wherever you define domestic. But it comes down to this question about what kind of independence you want and why, for what. The Kalman process that Graham was mentioning, every debate around that began with what do we need in order to increase our GDP? What powers do we need to increase economic growth? And that's absolutely polar opposite to the way Greens approach this issue, because a pretty fundamental aspect of Green politics is the recognition that while rich, developed countries are successful, or mostly successful at increasing their GDP, they do so recklessly in terms of the environmental and social impact on poor people, and they do so in a way that allows the benefit, the wealth that's generated from that economic activity, to stay with people who are already wealthy. And it's an environmentally and socially reckless policy. And so we wanted a wider debate about what are the social, environmental and economic priorities we're trying to achieve, rather than just how do we increase economic growth. And I think that hasn't really been addressed, either by the SNP or by the other political parties. And it was instructive this morning to see on my favourite social network one of the SNP MPs at Westminster saying, why can't we be independent? Look at even this tiny little country like Liechtenstein can be independent. And very quickly it had various people coming back saying, do you really want to turn Scotland into a tax haven? Well, do they? There are some in the SNP who would be utterly opposed to that kind of agenda, I know. But to hear Alex Salmond citing in glowing terms the support of the notorious tax exile Jim McCall in support of his policy to cut corporation tax is nauseating. And then to hear Jim McCall invited to the Scotland Bill Committee and admitting publicly, on the record, on camera, yes, I stashed my personal wealth away in Monaco, and by the way, would you cut my corporation tax bill too? Please, gonna. That kind of economic agenda, surely, if we've learned anything from what's happened to the global economy in the last few years, that kind of economic agenda is, as Graham rightly says, a dead end. And yet it's still being touted. It's still being touted. So we do need to have a debate about independence, or about the referendum and all of the options that it might include, that gets to the heart of what kind of country we want to live in. That doesn't shy away even from questions about hereditary monarchy, let alone how we run the economy. It should be open to every aspect of the kind of country that we want to be. And there'll be a wide range of views right across the political spectrum on all of those things. Both sides, and I'm afraid this is going to have to be my final point, both sides in the referendum campaign, I hope, have a positive agenda. I hope that both sides are willing and able to try and define the kind of society and the kind of Scotland that we want to live in. Because the worst kind of outcome from this referendum, regardless of what the people actually decide when they cast their ballot papers, the worst kind of outcome would be a Scotland that just stumbles on to the next stage of a failed economic model. The best kind of outcome, regardless of whether people vote yes or no, is that we can move forward in defining the kind of society we are and that we want to become. Not Liechtenstein, not Monaco, but a more socially just and economically just society that actually does what I think many people in most political parties want to do, and that's close the gap between rich and poor. They'll never achieve it if they don't challenge and overturn some of the economic assumptions that they've been working on for so many years. And with that, I'm very sorry that I'm going to have to run. Thank you very much.